Watch this video with our virtual reality glasses for smartphone. virtualvizor.com.
Tom Ara, I'm a shareholder at the global law firm of Greenberg Traurig. We have about 2,000 lawyers, 4 continents, about 40 countries. We are actively involved not only in the entertainment and media space in many of our offices, but we have a VR AR practice that I am a member of and actively involved in. I also lead the China side of the entertainment and media practice at the firm with representation of a number of Chinese companies investing in a variety of US-based entertainment media, AR, VR opportunities and ventures. And I can talk a little bit more about that when we get to the panel.
We're going to have a little bit of a global perspective today. I see what's shaping up here. And Mark now is with Technicolor Ventures. The fund was seated outside of Technicolor, and now it's inside the company.
Yeah, hi. Hi guys, my name is Mark now. I've been with Technicolor and Technicolor Ventures for the last 2.5, 3 years. I would say I've been probably covering VR and AR for the last 3 years. At Technicolor Ventures, we did 15 investments, some in VR or the VR space, and right now I'm in the corporate development group. So we look at we're looking at not just seed, but sort of all across the spectrum in terms of financing and the life of a startup. I would say that looking at the space, been helping a lot of entrepreneurs outside to help with their product strategy and capital raising strategy, and seeing sort of a lot of different trends in the space that I've highlighted in some publications. I've written a few articles for CV Insights, which takes really good track and data points for what's going on in the VR and AR space and any actually frontier technology space at the moment.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of CV Insights myself. In terms of data, let's look at the data. What does the market look like? If anyone would like to comment on it, and do you agree with the projections of 120 billion, 30 billion respectively for AR, VR markets in the next few years? Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. I think so. Our view is that the technology is really good. I mean, if you look at the VR technology, there are comparisons that people draw against 3D, and how is it really going to be successful or not? And I think our view is that the technology and the sort of experience that it provides is actually phenomenally different than what we had seen with 3D. Although you could, if you look at historically, anything that requires consumers to put something on their face is not very successful in the past. So I think, but we're still, we like the experience. We think the fact that consumers can immerse themselves and sort of be in a different place, I think, is pretty compelling. But it has its share of challenges, and I think we all probably have seen some challenges. I mean, largely it's around how do we get to the monetization, and how do we get to the adoption rates that would make this industry into those billion-dollar industries. So the initial reports, obviously, we think were pretty aggressive, and I think there will be some refinement to the estimates. It's still a pretty large market, but 30 billion in 2020 and 20 billion in 2020 seems like a stretch right now. I think the challenge is the moment you start getting adoption from the mass market point of view, that's when you can deterministically sort of figure out market rates a little bit better. Right now, if you look at cinematic VR, or enterprise VR, I still call them a sort of experimental mode. I mean, there's a lot of content being developed, but still, I think content creators are learning still largely in 2016 really going to be focused around gaming. And gaming is obviously it's one category, but it's still not mass market, at least from my point of view. I think mass market will come when people start using the headsets kind of like we have TVs in our home, right? Or maybe even mobile devices, right? I mean, we have the average household in the U.S. has 2.5 TVs. I think maybe if you have a couple of headsets per household, that sounds like mass adoption, but I think we're a little bit away from that. And some of it, as we develop more content, as the headsets become a little bit better, I think it'll happen. So to answer your question, I think the estimates need to be revised.
So that it seems like the market's coming, but it's the question of is it coming in Mary's pointed this out earlier, is it in 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, is there a bridge between the mass adoption?
Yeah, and if you look at most large sort of mega trends, there are three aspects to it. There's the investment dollars, which go into sort of developing the market. There's the technology aspect to it. And then the last thing really is, which is sort of the most important thing, is the consumer sort of adoption and the acceptance rate of the technology. And I think we have seen a lot of dollars flowing in the last, 5, 6 years. There have been like at least $4 billion venture investments that have gone into this space. Some companies have also made an IPO, with an acquisition. So a lot of value has been created, but I still don't think the consumer adoption, which is the third part of mega trend, has sort of gone and had reached that inflection point yet. And it's still largely gaming, but I think it's coming.
Coming to this market.
Yeah,
Mary, go ahead.
yeah. I mean, I agree with that. I think the numbers are going to change quite a bit over time, and it's already changing. When the initial projection for AR, VR was 150 billion, I think, by 2020, but when HTC launched the Vive, they readjusted the projection down to 120 billion. I mean, I think having those numbers is a great way to share with the world what the potential is for this industry, but it's going to change quite a bit based on the adoption rate, based on the advances in technology. There's just so many variables. I think one thing that's really interesting is that a lot of these projections are also based on how mobile adoption, the actual mobile adoption historically, but that was based on Moore's Law. And what's interesting is that Intel had indicated that Moore's Law is actually coming to a slowing halt. So what does that mean for the advancement of VR? Now, I don't think that VR advancement and technology advancement is going to slow down, because there are other ways that companies like NVIDIA are going to figure out how to do more with less hardware. But my point is that the projections are going to change based on all of these things that are happening right now. In terms of consumer adoption, I do think that there are two different experiences I see. One is you have your in-home personal experience. That's your gear, that's your Vive. But then there's also the out-of-home location-based experiences, and that's like what IMAX had announced just recently. They're launching, installations in theaters and in malls around the world. And I think that latter piece is really what's going to bring VR to the masses, and that I don't think has been taken into account with a lot of these projections. So location-based entertainment, that's going to be where the industry will see immediate monetization. That's also where a lot of consumers will encounter virtual reality for the first time, because a lot of them are not going to buy your Vive, even though the prices come down. These are really bulky headsets at this point. So they'll go, I see it more as, almost like a theme park. They'll go to these out-of-home experiences and experiences there.
So let's do the show of hands that you asked me to do. In this room, how many people are actually working in AR, VR? That's most of the room. I don't know if it's going to work there. Okay, if you work in AR, VR, you can't answer this next question. Do you actually use AR, VR headsets at home, and have you used any of the apps? Okay, that kind of tells the story. Location-based it is. Would anyone else like to comment?
Yeah, I'd like to comment a little bit on these numbers. So I think I know where the numbers you guys are talking about. You guys are talking about Tim Merrill's numbers from Digital Capital that say 120 at the end. First point, the VR top line didn't change. It was 30 and AR was the remaining. They reduced the AR to 90. So that's the one thing. The second point was that was released in January. Playing a little bit of devil's advocate here is because I don't think thinking of VR as this isolated experience, even though it is one, but it's meant to be social, right? As a reason why Mark Zuckerberg talked about, why he really bought Oculus. So two interesting things happened since AR was, I guess, projected downwards or redacted. One was there was an interesting acquisition of Luxury called from Snapchat, and if you guys know how much money they're actually driving per day in sponsored lenses, it's not real AR per se, but it's kind of a, I don't know how best to call it, but it's kind of AR or light AR that extracts revenue from this huge user base that Snapchat has. That's one. The second thing is Pokemon Go. Those put a lot of value into the AR market, and these things, happened after that. And the second part about VR's, I would say in terms of the corporate investments and the investing side, the later stage. Well, we talk about all these things we alluded to, a lot of the later stage money is coming from follow-on from corporates, and I think these are very defensive in nature. It's why is who announced recently Baobab? I think some of the telcos and some of the corporate strategics are invested in the latest round, and they raised $25 million. I think saying that this is going to go lower is kind of a hedge by all the analysts that were saying it's going to go higher or be really high. And you kind of read the tea leaves. All these corporates are investing when VR is considered hype cycle, but it's actually progressed along the hype cycle according to Gartner. It passed the trough of disillusionment, which means it's going to be a failing technology. So all these things kind of point towards that it's going to be a competing platform, and that's the best way to think of it if you want to think of it as the actual real market. And if everyone here who works in VR, if you guys are expecting to have a job in 5 years in VR, I would hope that you guys are cheering for the market, because thinking of VR as in gaming and cinematic VR is very limited. You have to think of VR in terms of what web was and what happened. There's a big sort of movement around web VR that just got announced, but it's been, to industry insiders, you all know about it. Making VR really distributable, really consumable, really scalable. These are the things that defines why a computing platform is very valuable and why it commands $150 million or $150 billion market by 2021.
I think that's a great point, because I've said in panel after panel yesterday and the day before, where the Hollywood community is approaching this the way we approached every new technology, okay, what's the extension for my film, what's the extension for my television show? Kelman, you sent me something from that point of view, which is my storytelling is great in film and TV, why do I need VR for storytelling, and how is that going to change my life? And here there's some sort of a sense of where is the business model and how am I going to get paid? But if you start looking at it, this is the internet from 1995, and it's going to redefine how we do everything, not just entertainment. Then as an entertainment company, you can find your place in that coordinate system and create business models that make sense. So Kelman,
Oh yeah, I was just going to say what I think is interesting about Mark's comment is the two examples he gave of augmented reality or virtual reality, whichever you want to define them as. Neither one of them require a user to put on a headset. So I still go back to how many people are going to go home at night and put on a headset to consume multiple hours of content in the foreseeable future. And that's what I personally really struggle with. I just don't know if that's going to become a reality in the near term.
Yeah, I think, Kelvin, you're focused on usage of headsets is a really good one. When we meet with entrepreneurs, the number one question that we ask anyone in VR and AR is, what is your minutes of use per user per month? And the numbers that we are hearing are shockingly low. And until those numbers start to go up, it's going to be a real challenge for people. Mary, I'm glad that you mentioned the parallels to mobile adoption in a lot of these industry forecasts. I would urge you to be very skeptical of any parallels to the early smartphone era, to iPhone and Android, when looking at the VR and AR market. And the reason for that is pretty simple. How many of you got your first phone and it was an iPhone or an Android? I'm going to presume the number is close to zero. The iPhone and the Android market came into an existing cell phone market. Most people had had multiple cell phones over a period of years when they made the upgrade to the iPhone or to Android in 07 or 08. Today, everybody who is buying a Gear or a Vive or an Oculus, or who is using it for the first time. And so we are probably closer to the era of Michael Douglas's phone in Wall Street than we are to the era of the iPhone when it comes to mobile, or when it comes to VR and AR today. The final thing I'll say about these projections and about the numbers that are being associated with them is that they're leading to a lot of capital going into startups, and a lot of that capital is leading to very high burn rates. And the burn rates that we are seeing across the industry are way, way, way too high. And I would encourage any entrepreneur in the VR and AR space today to really focus on survivability and sustainability.
Yeah, and I'll follow up on your comment about drawing the analogy to the mobile device market. I think that there's a bigger pain point around lack of communication, persistent communication, than there is around an immersive experience. I think that with the mobile device, try leaving your mobile phone at home and picking somebody up at the airport or meeting somebody at the mall. It's nearly impossible.
How did we do that before?
I know, right? It seems like you couldn't possibly do it. So I think it solved a much greater pain point than sitting at home, and I don't feel like watching basketball on my TV is a broken experience. Now, could it be better? Perhaps, but I don't know that I'm feeling a pain point where it would push me today, at least, to buy a headset.
Absolutely.
And then there's these multi-billion-dollar bets, these unicorns, right? And I sent you, I think, something about Blue Car, which is one of my favorites personally, because it's basically taking a look at the physical space that we're in and saying that we're going to integrate that space with this space so that you don't have to kind of look, especially at that age, looking at a small screen is really annoying. So this will be accessible to you, whether it's with a goggle or with a headset or whatever that's going to look little, thin in my ear or whatever it is in a couple of years. This data that we actually have, that we're using, as you say, just to get to places every day and to work through our daily lives, this will be now integrated with the physical world. Do you guys see any kind of deals in this space, and where do you think that's going?
Yes. We think that integrating experiences and the user journey into other platforms is what will drive engagement and minutes of use. You may be playing a game in a headset for 20 or 30 minutes on Saturday, but that gameplay experience can be and should be something that also lives on your desktop, on your console-based game, and on your mobile in a persistent way. And we think that cross-platform integration, both for gaming and for video-related content, will be what will help to drive these user engagement numbers and these minutes of use up. And we're very eager to find companies that are building the technology to make that happen.
And what I was saying is that we are going to step further and put their tags in 64 billion consumer products globally.
Exactly.
So you can literally scan, this jacket and find out where to buy it today because it's already in their database. So do you see deals in this space, Mark?
Yeah, there's a company that Salesforce backed that is doing a pretty interesting partnership with Coca-Cola. So I'm not familiar with how it works when you sell vending machines to companies or to small businesses that host them, but there's a company called Augment. They sell a visualization tool for putting anything in your store or storefront or in a physical location, right? It's an AR, not VR solution, but the really interesting thing about it is that it ties to a CRM on the back end through Salesforce, which really helps them. The more data they have about you, the more they can market and sell to you. I think that's a really interesting sort of like use case for AR and VR. Another one is, I mean, just a general broad statement. A lot of the banks overlooked marketing being a use case for VR, and it's a pretty huge one. And if you really think about that marketing advertising makes 4 to 6% of our GDP. That's a pretty big opportunity.
And you probably see some of the marketing and advertising deals in this space and that.
Yeah, and I think that's where adoption of AR is really happening in the enterprise. So you already have brands using AR in their training, in simulation, and in marketing. So Lowe's, they have a whole AR experience. Actually, it's a VR experience, but they've also recently started working with HoloLens to do an AR experience for their customers who want to come in and design their kitchen and their interior. So, and you have car dealers working with AR as well. And they've also already announced ROI from the use of AR, and I think that'll just further, the adoption of AR from an enterprise perspective.
Yeah, the thing I'll note is that we're seeing that although, the U.S. has great technology, so does Korea and stuff, and Japan, but in terms of adoption, the excitement right now here seems to be a lot around the entertainment aspects of the VR and AR, whereas we're seeing in other territories a lot more interest and, in fact, adoption in consumer and commercial uses, real estate, hospitality, whatever. China is one place where that's happening more than it is here, and interest, I think, is very high in how to monetize that, in territories outside of the U.S.
And we look at some technology in Korea that's very much like Vizor, right? And interestingly enough, as I looked at it, I thought, oh gosh, this is competing with a unicorn in Europe. This is a great idea. It should be funded. It should be developed. They thought of it as just connecting the dots on a physical label to the mobile device, and there's really not that thinking, I would say, globally that we have here in the U.S. in terms of development of these markets. So do you see that as sort of the, I would say, core competency that you guys bring to the table to the Asian market?
Well, look, I think at the end of the day, a lot of these experiences have some content component to it, right? There's some kind of a storyteller involved. And that's, by the way, that's something that most of our international partners envy us for. We're great storytellers and we're great at creating content. And look, what's happening in the film and television business with Asia and China in particular coming into the U.S. is a lot about that. You heard Wang Jianlin, who spoke earlier this week at an event I was at, talking about, adopting the storytelling of Hollywood. And I think a lot of that trickles into this. Maybe creating tags isn't storytelling, but there's a lot more to that when you talk about, the experience. And so I think we have to continue to foster and build that and covet that.
Yeah, because Silicon Valley is about packaging just as Hollywood is, just packaging in a different way.
That's right.
I think on the AR side, I just made one last comment on the AR side. I think the technology for AR is just a lot harder. It's just it's a few steps behind, I think, the VR technology. It's just a harder problem to solve. The applications are not necessarily entertainment applications. There are all sorts of business applications that you can imagine. You can think of email, any sort of app that we use on these phones today, and it would be very relevant to an AR type of platform. but just getting the initial optics right. I mean, there's the issue of the headsets become bulky and not necessarily very socialized per se. But apart from that, just getting the resolutions, the optics right, I think there's going to be a little bit of a time to get before companies get that right. And there's a reason why Magic Leap and some of these companies have raised so much money, because it's a hard problem to solve.
They need the 12 to 18
Yeah,
months
I mean,
runway.
it's just, it's a very hard problem to solve. And I think while in VR we're starting to see really good quality display. I mean, it still probably can't compare to maybe a 4K television, but it's getting there. I think it's in that evolution step right now. But on the air side, I think the technology is still a few steps behind before we can say it's ready for mass
So it's even a little slower process to
yeah,
adoption.
but it's a bigger platform. I mean, to me, I feel VR is more so like a complementary add-on to like a television at home, whereas an AR headset would be something that would be more like a mobile device like a phone. So I can imagine once these technologies do become mainstream, everybody in the household has one phone, at least I would think now, and I would think they would probably have some kind of an AR device like that. But on a VR headset, it could be maybe one or two per household.
And that's really interesting because there's this whole idea of mixed reality that keeps coming up, which is and as we were, I think, talking earlier about, cross-platform, but really kind of cross-physical world to the digital world. Do you guys see any companies developing in that space?
So we've seen companies doing social VR, so that's somewhat of a cross, I think. And actually going back to Mark's point, I think one of the problems, if you draw an analogy of VR with like a bed, the internet really became popular and really became mainstream once it started having social applications. Before Google and Facebook, I mean, it was there, but the adoption really started becoming mass market once there was a social aspect to it. So I think that is, we think that that's actually a pretty important part of getting VR and AR mass market. So we have seen technologies that are now trying to, bring the social element to it. It's again very early. There's the digital avatars to do that. The avatars that are today are maybe not very good, but there are experimental avatars where you find it very hard to now, distinguish between what a real person and his avatar. It's actually pretty good. It's getting very, very close. Yeah.
I'd like to clone myself, so I can't wait for that time to happen. No, so I think another maybe interesting thing would be to see where the audience would like to take this discussion. So how many people in the audience are raising money for an AR/VR company? Okay, a few. Do you guys have any questions for the panel? Are they a good fit? Maybe go ahead.
Yeah, my question is with respect to content, which really hasn't been discussed too much today. VCs are typically allergic to content and content plays. So what is your perspective on how VCs and angels will invest in content, and what's your prognostication on where content is with VR in the next few years?
I think it depends on the investor. So Comcast Ventures is actually investing pretty heavily in AR VR content. I think you just need to find the right type of investor. It sounds like you guys are more on the technology side, but you'll find some that will invest, and they probably have some media angle to them as a Comcast or others. Actually, Anchor, I'm curious how you guys think about. I mean, you guys are in the content world.
We've not done any sort of VR content investments yet. But yeah, we're open to it. I think the challenge is again how do you maintain a level of burn that's going to let you sustain through the adoption curve. Content is really a key integral part of the adoption curve. Without the content, I think it's going to be hard to get those adoption rates to happen. But yeah, I think there are some VCs. I mean, definitely funds like Comcast. Comcast does very well, and because they are
VR stack, you have the hardware, the peripherals, the distribution, the points of aggregation, or the app stores, and then you have the applications, the content on top of that. If we look at the wave of investments, I feel like the first wave is really into the hardware, so Facebook and Oculus, and Microsoft investing into the HoloLens. I think what we'll start to see is now that we have this hardware investment into content, and I think the strategics, those who know and who get content will be leading those investments, like the Disney investing in Jaunt or the Comcast. I also think another source of funding would be the headsets themselves, right? They're spending a lot of money building these headsets, and they're also investing in the content that would go on them. I mean, in the Oculus Connect conference recently, Oculus just announced another $250 million that they would be investing in, committing to funding. There is, Vive has Vive Studios, they're funding the content, they have the Vive Accelerator. There are a bunch of other funds that have come together, the VR VCA that have committed $10 billion, a staggering amount of money into really growing the VR ecosystem. I think those are sources of funding. I think China is really interesting. So Baofeng, one of the headset manufacturers, in Q1 of this year, they announced that they sold 1 million headsets, right, through their brick and mortar stores in China. And they were targeting 10 million for 2016. And so that's a lot of headsets. They're seeing a lot of, I think there's a big VR hardware boom in China, and I think there's opportunity there because they're all looking for content as well.
So on this one quick note, on the Liberty side, so we do invest, like we have investments in Formula E and some of the larger sporting networks, and we are looking at potentially trying to invest or trying to find companies who could potentially develop VR or content for like those sporting categories. I think sports VR is also different than cinematic, as you mentioned, but I think it's an interesting category, particularly for certain sports.
I mean, content for us is the crux of what our practice kind of starts with. We cross over with our technology group that deals with the technological side of it, but I mean, I can't tell you how much we're talking, I mean, on a regular basis, because the overlap is constant. And, we're involved on a regular basis, representing the producers of content or the licensors of the ideas or the formats or the underlying work behind the content in these deals where they're looking to, whether it's a studio property from a major film studio or television or video game, we're seeing this constantly, and it's really become an important part of what we're doing. And we represent the Pokemon company, so we've actually been very involved in everything that they've been doing and the repercussions of some of that as well, good and bad. But we're seeing content becoming kind of a central character in how this is all playing out domestically and internationally.
Yeah, I think sort of echoing other people's points here. I've heard of a lot of different content companies in the VR space raising money, and I've actually helped one and helped them pivot into it. But like the story they tell is very different. I mean, one, you either have differentiated IP or you have access to it. Two, you in the future are some kind of aggregation distribution point for this content. And I think another thing that you're noticing is some of these guys that are ex-studio or ex-Pixar or whatnot guys are being able to raise that because they maybe could be like Valve and build the next Pixar of VR. So I think you have to compete along different dimensions versus just being a production, like sort of services company where it's a studio model where you can't really scale your business. You have to have something unique and a competitive advantage to just being that, because we've already seen, everyone has already seen that. If you look at all the startups that were raising money in Los Angeles that are there's a trend, right? That they started off as like VR content companies, and now they pivoted into being distribution platforms. And why? Because that's what garners VC investment.
And also, when you start thinking about the business, the film, television, games, it's a hit-driven business. So you can't really create a business around one idea, one story, a couple of stories. It has to be a portfolio. And then once you get to the portfolio thing, you name drop. But the studios really are big marketing machines that spend money. Who are the companies? Oh, the companies that Encore has, that distribute all that. They make the money. It's the distribution network. So you go, okay, I need to do a portfolio and I need to have a distribution network. So once you start going through all of that thinking, there's kind of like one type of company that gets funded that is in our space, and that's the company that has both production and distribution and marketing capabilities.
Or if your investor can offer you sees your IP as being very valuable and they can distribute it, that happens quite a bit. I mean, you see what AOL and Verizon is doing, and they've divulged a lot of their strategy around why they're doing content deals, and some people in China are looking to get some equity stakes in studios here. So there's a lot of reasons for that.
Moderator just launched a $3 billion fund from their corporate arm and a $200 million venture fund. They're the largest search engine in China, competing with Alibaba and Tencent on the public market side. So there's some big strategics, and I would say all sizes strategic companies that are chasing this next generation of computing space. And once you understand that, then you can position your digital distribution company, digital studio in Hollywood to be poised for venture capital type investment.
And one more thing, I think on the content side, this is a different type of content, it's a different type of storytelling. So I think even content producers and directors have to go through a certain amount of training and understanding what really is going to work for the consumer here. And if you recall, the early DVDs, they used to have the consumer be able to select angles and all of that actually went away very fast because I don't think consumers really figured out the best way to do that. And I think over a period of time, as content is coming up as smaller companies, I think if you are able to distinguish yourself by some research or some way which kind of indicates that, okay, this particular way of producing content is going to be much better than some other way. I think that's going to be potentially attractive to get some investment dollars as well.
Yeah, producing and aggregating, and then ultimately distributing too.
Yeah.
There's a potential to have a core competency in any of them or all three. Yes.
Thank you for answering my question so thoroughly in anti-Trump fashion.
Yeah, so I want to ask how the investment community views location-based entertainment, because now you've got IMAX doing their VR sort of for cinemas and malls, and you have a lot of other companies doing two-seater, six-seater kind of pod experiences to view VR. What do you all think about that?
I'll keep my answer short. I mean, I think China loves it. They've already got, that's one thing I think the difference is between here. Someone said this really intelligently, and it's like the capital comes from America, but the markets in China due to that very reason.
Oh yeah, the actual adoption.
Yeah, I mean, they got to how many million internet cafes and things like that. It's a different sort of like culture out there for what the kind of entertainment they consume.
The interesting thing about the China market for that is that we have seen usage-based pricing there that I think is, honestly, kind of astonishing and quite high. I mean, I've met with numerous companies that have revenue streams from China that are monetizing right now at $60 an hour per experience. And I mean, that's an incredibly high price. And I think that there are a lot of people who are willing to pay $60 an hour for an experience once, but I don't think that drives repeat usage and repeat engagement. And I believe for that to happen, the price has to fall by at least 90%.
So this is really becoming a global investment market. Most of the discussion today centered about some sort of a critical advantage in the global market. It seems to me that everyone I talk to that's outside of the U.S. with the great technology wants to have some demonstrable uptake in the U.S. and then vice versa, that the adoption in other countries could drive companies out of the U.S. So how are you working? Is this part of your investment strategy? Are you looking at global technologies, or are you focusing on the U.S. market today?
Well, we look at stuff that would eventually become relevant to our markets in Europe. Whatever becomes relevant to Europe largely has a pretty global footprint in general. So most of our investments actually are companies that are here in the U.S. We typically become sort of the first customer or an early customer in Europe. The phenomena is, AR, VR is very global. So we're looking at content that would be maybe localized to some of our markets, but at least all the technology infrastructure and the distribution channels to actually distribute those technologies, the content all will be globalized. So most of our companies are generally pretty global.
Mary, what about the consulting clients that you guys look at? Are they U.S.-based, global?
So we represent and content creators here in the U.S. are also looking for funding, and what we're doing for them is really, we're talking to brands, we're talking to the HMDs, and that's part of sort of my answer to your question earlier. We are also speaking with investors internationally who are looking for content. And all of this was baked into my answer to the previous question. International investors looking for content here in the U.S. So, and what I think is interesting specifically for location-based is that that's sort of the area they're looking for content for. So we were speaking with some Japanese investors, and they weren't interested in content for the Vive or bringing Vive over, but they were looking at their karaoke bars and how they could bring content into karaoke bars and internet cafes there. So, yeah, so I think they're far ahead in terms of location-based, and I think that they see that's where adoption is going to happen first and foremost.
We're actually seeing some of that activity here in the U.S. There's a lot of discussion around empty space at some of our mega malls and what to do with that. So you don't have to go to theme parks. There are locations just down the street from many of our homes and offices where there may be opportunities for location-based VR and AR, or VR primarily experiences, and we have clients that are actively exploring that with operators of some of these locations.
Very interesting. And these are basically retail shopping mall developers who have money and want to be part of the break in the world.
That's right.
Smart.
That's
Very
right.
smart.
Well, if you have, if you've lost a big tenant like a Macy's or whatever, what are you going to put in that space? You could hope for another major tenant or think outside the box and try something different.
It may give you more revenue per square foot than a retail.
Correct.
So you have to show the numbers that are better than Macy's sales, for example, in your business plan.
Right.
That's a great tip if you're in location-based VR. So let's take that. I'm going to put you guys on the spot a little bit. First of all, thank you for preparing so thoroughly for the panel and for giving this amazing overview of kind of market analysis. Brings me back to business school, as we go through the SWOT analysis here. But if you had a deal that you were shown to one of you guys, what would it take in terms of the actual financial modeling, components of that deal? Do you have to have user uptake that's X? Do you have to have $1 million in revenue? Do you have to be in X many billion of the growing market? What are some sweet numbers that you think people should think through as they put their financial models together that are fundable versus non-fundable?
As a seed investor, I view financial models that go out beyond about a year to be mostly fiction, and so so they're not really all that relevant for seed investing. At the stage of investing that we do, what matters most is a company raising enough money to be able to hit milestones for future financing. And so if you are raising seed capital, sometimes we see people who raise seed capital, we ask, well, how long is it going to last? And they say 6 months. And we say, do you really enjoy fundraising that much? Because that's just, things always take longer, things always cost more, and you want to give yourself the opportunity to put your head down and work for a year or a year and a half or more and get stuff done so that by the time you're raising your next round, you're raising an up round, you have made progress, and you are showing signs of traction and product market fit in a way that will enable you to raise a Series A.
So is it 18 to 24 or 12 to 18?
As much time as you can buy yourself.
18 to 24.
As much time as you can buy yourself will help. Keep those burn rates low.
Your assumptions, great. Okay. Billion markets, I mean, these markets are all multi-billion. We're not going to find a $5 billion market. Just to give you a minimum size. Yeah.
I think for us, we typically, we call ourselves stage agnostic. When we look at our deals, they typically end up between Series A and C. Most of our companies do have an operating model that you could look at, but again, maybe not a year, 2 years after that, we start saying, okay, it's all fictional anyway. So I think for us, what really is important is the technology and the ability to defend it. Whether it's through patents or whether it's core, engineering team. It could be first mover advantage in a lot of cases, in which case we would look at numbers, usage, and adoption rates, and the likes. But in the case of VR and AR, I think obviously the markets are still pretty early to make any meaningful sense out of usage rates right now. I think what is more important for us, and if we are to look at a business plan around the VR and AR market, I think we really look at what would be defensible and something that can basically produce technology in the 4 to 5 year type of range.
So 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, exactly.
More standard
Yeah.
Series A in post.
Yeah. So the financial models are good, but I think more than the top line, we'd be concerned about what sort of cash infusion does the company need over the next 3 to 5 years. So the burn, that's important, and obviously how defensible technology would be, barriers to entry.
One thing I would add about just financial projections and market size, if you are having to convince an investor that you're pitching that you're attacking a high market, that you're attacking a big market, then you're pitching the wrong investor. And so we almost always just skip any discussion in our meetings with entrepreneurs about the size of the market. If we don't already know it's a large market, you're pitching the wrong folks.
Makes sense, especially these markets are just
Yeah.
huge. What about any more to add to that, Mark? As they come to see you, like what shouldn't they do?
What shouldn't they do?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know about what shouldn't they do, but I gravitate. I mean, there's a few. Let's talk about seed stage first of all. I've probably only seen 5 or 6 deals in the space that have actually been profitable at this stage, and just need more capital to grow, to scale that business. But also in this area, you're looking at how awesome is the team, do you have a history of success, what are your customers saying? I would say beyond not just how much, I think it makes sense to ask them how much customer acquisition costs you and what you think the lifetime value of that customer will be. But I think at this stage, I look more is your retention of customers really high? Are they happy with you? Because that gives me that gives me some comfort on whether or not you've really found some product market fit. I think for later stage things, it's different. If some of us are working at we do corporate investments, so strategically this is aligned with us. And it's true. We don't look at your projections aren't the Excel model that I have to dig through all the time. I never believe it for one. So I always discount it. And the second thing is, does it align with us strategically? If we buy something, or if we acquire something, or if we invest in something, does this lead to something for us strategically that will enhance us or augment our position or augment one of our business units? That's pretty important to me.
So you have to really, I think, we're almost out of time. So you have to really be considered a lot of times various investors and feedback that we've given as we've seen, pitch companies. We do invest in seed and early stage. Is that at this very early phase of the industry where you're not seeing a lot of the traction of customers, it's the team that really matters. So really spend time building a really good and valuable team. If you look at the investments in content companies that have happened, Baylab and VRC, they have an incredible team behind the company. And I think that's what's important is that we can be confident that we can execute in this new medium. And maybe you don't have that on your startup management team, if you recruit that, or kind of recruit them with, if you raise the next round, kind of bring them from your advisory board, et cetera, so that you have that track record. All right, so what is the last takeaway? Because we're at the end of our time. I'm so sad that we got to this point, but maybe each one of you just sort of one sentence or two what you're looking at in this space, working entrepreneurs could maybe talk to you about, or maybe what's the biggest takeaway in the area of market for your company right now. Either of those two would be great. Want to start?
Yeah, sure. I think for me, things around social VR, I think is very interesting. I'd love to hear any thoughts around that. Plus, I'm pretty bullish on this technology in the market. I think it will take its time. So obviously, companies need to be careful and mindful of their burn, so it gives them more runway. But I do like it. I think the social aspect is going to be very interesting for me. And I'll hear any thoughts around that.
Ma'am? I guess just what I think the market needs right now is really, as fast as we can get to a point where we have a lightweight, effortless, very natural headset or device that we can work with to experience this content. I want to get to a point where I can experience your 5th gen Vive type of content in the Snapchat spectacle.
Still drink your beer while you're watching.
Exactly. That's great. Huh?
Yeah, I would say we don't have any particular or specific technologies that we're looking for. We're just looking for ideas that drive user engagement. Anyone who comes to us and can show that their early users are coming back onto their platform every day, every week, that they're spending long session times and things like that, that's what gets our attention.
I would say that, for all of the entrepreneurs out there who are trying to build something in the AR, VR space, my view, and you can probably tell from my comments already, is that this market is still a long ways off from real mass market adoption. And therefore, I believe that we'll see another business cycle before you actually see a real market out there for revenues for businesses and profits. And so my advice would be, really think hard about your fundraising and how, if the market does take another downturn, before there's a true market for your product, how can you weather that and be prepared for a long cold winter.
By the way, I have to say your webcasting has been effective because I've already received 2 emails. People watching. Or everyone got one, they just haven't checked their email.
Yeah, let's all check now.
From our perspective, we see this opportunity globally, and we think our clients should as well. Just as we're seeing that globalization and have been seeing in the kind of traditional entertainment industry, we think that is exactly where we want our clients to be with AR and VR. And our focus is certainly not only on the technology, but on the content. And we think great storytellers, great owners of great content will have a lot of lucrative opportunities. We think it's just the beginning.
It's terrific time. Mark?
I would take a look at what's going on in web VR. That sounds crazy. That's my advice. And if not, look at your business as something that could be scalable, distributable, headset agnostic, and really easy to consume and to share. I would also say think of VR as a platform, not this gaming device. That's why I say we really take a look at what's going on in web VR and all the efforts that Mozilla, Oculus, and Google are putting into it. This may solve a lot of the problems that we are we talk around in circles for why VR is not taking off.
Well, thank you so much. Great comments. I learned a lot.
Thank you.